Women are always ruining everything, aren't we? It's really a tale as old as time. I call this the creation and recreation of Eve. Yes, like the one in the Bible. Like the story of Adam and Eve, where a woman discovered something that had been gate kept from her in order to make her subservient to men, and then was immediately blamed and punished for it. And even though it may seem like there's an influx of these think pieces right now, I know there's that latest Scott Galloway video floating around all about how men need to go to church and get married because women do just fine without relationships, but men need relationships. That's another biblical parallel, the whole it's not good for a man to be alone, so he needs a helper, he needs a helpmeet. All of these sentiments have roots within religious propaganda. And Sovereign and I actually just did a whole episode talking about religious propaganda, and we actually got really into it with the story of Adam and Eve, so be sure you check that out. And concluded basically that Eve was punished for trying to bring humanity closer to consciousness and self-awareness. And make no mistake, that's really the buried lead in behind all of these headlines that we're going to take a look at, courtesy of Paul Ferry over on Blue Sky. He put together a whole bunch of these headlines that we've seen throughout history. And the thing that they all have in common is that women are being punished for demanding access, for asking questions, and for exposing oppressive systems. Also find it to be a very interesting parallel that throughout all of these headlines, like historical blaming of women for ruining things, the men in the stories are painted out exactly like Adam was painted out in the biblical story of Adam and Eve, where men are sort of positioned in these think pieces as passive and really removed from the problem, when that is objectively not true. Who created the workplace, the concept of a workplace as we know it, and who was there first? Pay attention to the parallels. Even though Adam was in the garden first, he was the one that was told which fruit not to eat. He was supposed to pass that knowledge on. He had the responsibility of the actual gatekeeping. And not only did he fail, but he followed the woman's lead, benefited from her actions, right? They ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge, which was gate kept. This is the part that Christians really don't like to talk about, is that really the allegory in the Adam and Eve story is that the fruit of the tree of knowledge was elevated consciousness. Obviously, Adam benefited from that, but then still somehow managed to weasel his way out of the actual responsibility and managed to act like he wasn't even there and like he didn't know what happened and that he was led astray, etc. And it was really the woman's fault. He said, it was the woman you gave me. She brought me the fruit and I ate of it. Did women ruin the secret garden of Eden? Did women ruin the workplace? The parallels are exactly the same. Even though men were there in the workplace first and they created it to be this hierarchical, oppressive system that requires blind obedience, that requires a bunch of ass kissing and workplace politics. Somehow it was the women that ruined it, as this podcast kind of insinuated, by entering these places and once again trying to elevate the consciousness. The thing that they were blaming women for in this conversation is this idea of wokeness and the Me Too movement and basically women demanding justice and equity. So once again, they were exposing oppressive systems and attempting to elevate consciousness. The problem with men is that they have to be dragged towards progress, kicking, screaming, and shitting their pants. Like they're shitting their pants right now because a bunch of women voted for justice, for healthcare rights, for human rights, for access to social safety nets. Even though young women are trying to push us as a general towards progress, a lot of men are shitting their pants about repealing the 19, taking away our right to vote. We must be punished because we have exposed the oppression and we asked for something better to be put in place. And men really hate that because the oppression of women benefits men, which, mind you, they were highly encouraged to do by men who were like, oh yeah, go out there and prove that you can work. Now that you feminists have these rights to work, you better be paying half the bills, you better be paying for half the date, etc. Meanwhile, men did not step up in the home. Men did not learn how to cook, how to manage a household, how to rear children, anything like that. But now it's women ruining the art of cooking because, God forbid, they no longer have the time or the means or the desire to cook these elaborate meals at home because now they're also working just like the men. And again, the lead is buried. The lead is buried that not only did men gatekeep us out of the workplace, but again, now that we're in the workplace, they're like, why don't these women cook anymore? Why don't these women cook and clean like they used to? They don't want to have children like they used to, all this kind of stuff. And it's once again because men benefit from our oppression. Men have been having their career success off the blood, sweat, and tears of women, unpaid women who would stay back and cook and clean and raise their children, do everything that had to do with the household. But again, now that women have lobbied for access to these gate-kept resources, now it's them that are ruining the art of cooking. Meanwhile, men have never even known on a large scale how to cook. Men have never contributed that to a marriage. Women are always ruining the countries that we were not allowed to participate in building and setting up, right? But somehow we always ruin it. Meanwhile, all over the world, men are running entire countries straight into the ground, just mismanaging everything, getting into wars, lying, cheating, grifting, stealing, but it's women that ruin the countries by ruining the home life and the moral ideals of the rising generations. I wonder which moral ideals those are. The ideas that women are not allowed out of the home, the idea that women kind of belong to men as a helpmeet, as someone that they get to succeed at the expense of. See, these are the morals that men are always worried that we as women are going to ruin for them. The moral stance that every man should have a woman who does all of the domestic labor, all the child rearing, all the emotional and mental labor so that he can have access to a workplace, access to money, access to resources, access to a community, access to a professional network. Meanwhile, she has access to nothing. She exists just to serve him. These are their morals, just so that we're all clear on that. These are the morals that men are afraid of us ruining. Of course, women have always ruined marriage by becoming too independent within it, right? The independence of married women was regarded with profound disfavor. Mind you, it was men that invented marriage literally in order to control women. Marriage was invented so that women could be traded between men like cattle and paid for like resources, and then used basically as appliances by men to run their entire life for them. But yeah, God forbid women ruin that institution. Because the question is always like, whom is it being ruined for? It's not women, right? Women have always wanted independence, access to resources, and to mind our own fucking business. This is men's problem with us. They don't like that. Apparently, women can even ruin men as like an entire species, right? And this article specifically is talking about how men are ruined by empathy, how men are ruined by cooperation, how men are ruined by being more like women, if we're being honest. So this is the giveaway. The fact that they are like, men can't be like women, otherwise what? Otherwise what? What's the quiet part we're not saying out loud? And it's that otherwise you'll be oppressed. Otherwise, you'll be the milksop, right? The cleaning cloth with which society mops up all of its disgusting problems. And we just use women as a rag to sop all of that up. That's what that's saying. Men always get upset about it because they can feel the privilege leaving their body when women do this. When women push them towards consciousness, when women push them towards cooperation, men start to feel weak. Because it's only women that are supposed to be cooperative and have empathy. And again, you just have to ask why. Why would it be set up this way? Women are ruining the world. It's time that America wakes up and realizes that women are beginning to run society. They are running the world. They're getting away with what they want to get away with. Why not blast the woman who was allegedly involved with this? This is the Eve story reinvented once again. Eve recreated. The quiet part, once again, that they're not saying out loud is who was running the world before and who was getting away with what they wanted to get away with. Who was running society before? Again, it's all right here. They will always tell on themselves. They're like, no, we wanted to run the world. We wanted to make the rules. And now women are ruining the world that we built to give ourselves an advantage by demanding equality, by demanding the same advantages. Well, if you give everybody an advantage, then nobody has an advantage. And that's the only way that we as men have always been able to succeed, is by having an unfair advantage. By what? Gatekeeping women out of politics, of schools, of education, of knowledge, of access to resources, etc. And women always are trying to ruin that. And women are the bad guys. Like, that is like the highest order of gaslighting, right? This is why people often say that, like, you can't decenter men until you deconstruct religion, because the story of Adam and Eve gives credence to these types of think pieces. We never talk about how men factually ruin the world, how lopsided the violence statistics are, how women are literally oppressed. 1 in 3 women will experience violence at the hands of a man that she knows. There's still a pay gap. There are countries all around the globe where women are not allowed to learn, to work, to speak, even to look each other in the eye. They don't want to hear women's voices outside. It all comes back to this idea that women are going to ruin the world by asking for equitable treatment. And it gives away the whole play that men are trying to run on us, which is the act of gatekeeping us out of important institutions, and or using those institutions to oppress us. Not only gatekeep us, but also oppress us. Anyways, as much as this sucks, it's also a clear sign of progress. And to me, it really seems like the extinction burst that usually precedes big changes. Like I said, men always have to be dragged into this screaming, crying, and throwing up. There's no other way to do this but for women to once again take the lead, take charge, and make progress happen. So please stay safe out there, and Godspeed. I love you so much. Mwah.